This is the STV News at 10. Our top stories tonight. Police gear up for the busiest time of the year with a reassurance they'll deal with any possible terror threat. A campaign to extend leave for parents of premature babies gets the backing of MSPs. And in sport, continuing their dominance, Celtic extend their lead at the top of the Premiership. Good evening. Police Scotland say they have plans in place to counter any terrorist incident which may take place over the festive season. The announcement comes ahead of the busiest week of the year for emergency services across Scotland. Here's our senior reporter, Mike Edwards.
Golf Romeo 21 Bravo, could you just confirm?
Last year, the three busiest days for Police Scotland's call handlers were December the 23rd, Hogmanay and January the 1st. In total, 3.5 million calls were received and acted upon. Most were standard police matters, but the possibility of a terrorist attack, similar to the incident in Berlin this week, has been factored into police planning this Christmas.
And we continue to review those plans in light of changing circumstances, like, for example, the Berlin attack in recent days. We've got no specific threat in relation to any of the events in Scotland, but we'll continue to analyse and to assess that as we go forward. The threat level to the UK is severe, so our message to the public is you should be alert but not be alarmed.
Today, the Justice Secretary visited a police call centre in Glasgow. He wouldn't comment on a number of high-profile apparent lapses which resulted in delayed police responses to incidents in which deaths were involved because they're currently under independent examination by the police watchdog, but he says improvements have been made.
There have been significant changes, and our call centre staff within Police Scotland and across our other emergency services do a fantastic job for us. This is the busiest time of the year for them. They're dealing with a call every 9 seconds. Over the course of this month, they will probably deal with in the region of 250,000 calls from members of the public, very often in a distressed state and in difficulty.
Police control rooms like this one are preparing for the busiest weekend of the year. This year there are added factors, the potential for bad weather, an Old Firm football match and the ever-present Scottish problem of alcohol. The government and the police want the alcohol to remain part of the celebrations only and not a factor in people using 999 and 101 services irresponsibly when they're at their busiest this Christmas. Mike Edwards, STV News, Glasgow.
A campaign to extend parental leave and pay for those with premature babies has received the backing of MSPs. Last year, there were more than 4,300 babies born before 37 weeks in Scotland. Today, Scottish politicians supported a bill in Westminster to remove financial and time pressures on parents in those crucial early weeks. Alison McCallum reports.
Almost a year ago, Karen and Andrew Stirrett's lives became a lot busier when they welcomed Caleb, Poppy and Alicia into the world. But like many mothers with a multiple pregnancy, she went into labour early, 13 weeks before full term in her case. Knowing her babies would arrive early, she took the decision to give up work rather than take maternity leave.
I knew that my maternity leave would kick in a lot earlier than like normal people's would, so therefore it was a case of, well, I could just give the job up now because I couldn't imagine going back to work and obviously leave my baby so early to a normal pregnancy.
The charity Bliss say almost 6,000 babies in Scotland every year need specialist care at the time of birth. With premature babies, hospital care can last weeks or even months. A campaign to get maternity and paternity leave and pay extended for parents of premature babies gained attention at the Scottish Parliament, where MSPs said it was time for the UK government to consider it.
The parents of premature babies in particular are faced with financial uncertainty while being deprived of valuable, precious time bonding with their new babies.
One would think that a baby who has spent the first 3 months struggling to stay alive needs their parents to be around for longer, not a shorter time once life really begins.
Parental leave is, of course, a matter reserved to the UK government, but we on these benches will do our utmost to ensure the terms of the motion and the sentiments expressed today in the Chamber reach the relevant people in Westminster.
Right, there we go, little lady.
A spokesman for the UK government's business department said the current system of maternity leave strikes the right balance for employers and new mums, including those who give birth prematurely. Karen believes they should look at it again.
We're not asking for 20 weeks worth of pay, we're just asking for the 13 weeks that they were initially early, because if you are at home and your kid was sick, you would get that time off, and a lot of the time employers do sympathise with you, so it's just really the same emotional and financial support that you're looking for that other people would get.
A bill to change rights for premature parents will be considered in the House of Commons in March. Alison McCallum, STV News.
The Scotch Whisky Association has been granted permission to appeal to the UK Supreme Court over the Scottish Government's plans for a minimum price for alcohol. The body believes the proposal goes against EU regulation law. Earlier this year, 3 judges at the Court of Session ruled that Holyrood's plans were legally sound. Today, those same judges decided the case could be heard at the country's highest court. Campaigners are calling for tighter regulations on the sale of dogs in Scotland in a bid to end the illegal puppy trade. Each year, thousands of dogs are trafficked here from puppy farms in Ireland as well as Eastern Europe. Today, the issue was debated in the Scottish Parliament, as Susan Ripple reports.
These dogs have been illegally bred at a puppy farm. They're being kept in cramped conditions with little to no food or water. In many cases, they end up being sold online to unsuspecting buyers. Today, the issue was debated at Parliament.
The continued presence of the illegal puppy trade in Scotland is a mark of shame on our animal welfare record.
Maybe a licence needs to be a bit harder to come by so that we can make sure that there's an ability to look at the breeders, do inspections appropriately, and ultimately consider the best welfare for the wee pups.
Wyatt here is a fit and healthy little puppy, but the dogs that come from these farms often have health problems. Families are then left heartbroken as they become sick and often die.
Anyone considering buying a puppy is being advised to go to a reputable breeder.
Make sure that you see the parent dogs. These puppies obviously are being transported across from Southern Ireland. They don't have the parents with them. Ask lots of questions and don't be tempted to buy something unregulated. You wouldn't buy an iPhone for your children without it coming in a box with a receipt and a warranty. So why do that with a pup?
Campaigners are calling for tougher regulation, focusing on online sales, as well as a ban on the third-party sale of dogs in Scotland. The First Minister says the government is committed to reviewing whether more can be done, but she's also urging the public to take responsibility.
Legal trade in puppies or in anything else can only thrive if it's got a willing market, and that's why my message to the public is don't buy puppies through the internet, from sources that are not reputable, that you don't know where they come from.
It's hoped today's debate will help to raise awareness to end this illegal trade in a bid to safeguard the welfare of these puppies. Susan Ripple, STV News, Edinburgh.
A mother who murdered her toddler son will have an appeal against her conviction heard next month. Rachel Trelfa and her partner Naomi Fee were found guilty earlier this year of killing 2-year-old Liam Fee. The pair were also convicted of committing a catalogue of abuse against Liam. Engineers working on Scottish Water's £100 million Shield Hall tunnel project have completed the first mile. It's the first part of the biggest upgrade of the Greater Glasgow area's wastewater infrastructure since Victorian times. Campaigners in Glasgow have won their fight to save the North Kilvin Meadow after the Scottish Parliament turned down plans for the construction of flats. In recent years, the land in the city's West End has been transformed into a green space for local residents. Sport and Celtic teenager Calvin Miller has described his first team debut as an unbelievable experience. The champions won all 3 points thanks to Scott Sinclair's strike to further extend their lead at the top of the Premiership. Here's Rahman Bardwaj.
Making his Celtic first-team debut at the age of 18, Calvin Miller was given the opportunity to show what he's got in his locker. The promising youngster usually plays as an attacker, but Brendan Rodgers threw him in at left-back against Partick Thistle last night. After recovering from a hamstring injury, Scott Sinclair made his first start for a month, and the winger marked his return in style. He put the champions one up after a quarter of an hour. The Jags, who sit bottom of the table, had a great chance to draw level. After Moussa Dembele lost possession, Ryan Edwards set up Adi Aziz, but the forward couldn't find the back of the net. In the second half, both teams had opportunities. First Dembele, then Patrick Roberts for the hosts.
Roberts Good stop by Czerny.
At the other end, with substitute Emilio Izagiri out of position, Ziggy Gordon broke clear.
Ziggy Gordon! And he tugs the shot just wide.
Sinclair was presented with an opportunity to score his second of the night, but this time he was denied by Thomas Czerny. Thistle's appeals for a handball against Jose Simonovic were turned down. When the ball fell to Sean Welsh, his effort was saved by Craig Gordon. So, the 1-0 win means Celtic have a 14-point lead over second-place Rangers, and that too with a game in hand. The champions are away to Hamilton on Christmas Eve. The Jags remain bottom on 15 points. They travel to Dingwall to take on Ross County on Friday. Raman Bardwaj, STV News.
Coming up in part 2, a callous act of the most despicable kind. Join us after the break. Hello again. An 87-year-old woman says she's now too scared to open her front door after bogus callers conned her out of hundreds of pounds and stole the money that she'd been saving for Christmas. Anne McBride is the 4th pensioner to be targeted in the Tayside area alone in the last 2 weeks. She's been speaking to Louise Cowie.
My first reaction was, how could I have been so stupid? A first-class fool, idiot. But on second thoughts, I fell for it. I didn't think for 1 minute that what happened would have happened.
2 weeks ago, 2 men talked their way into 87-year-old Anne McBride's Dundee home, saying she needed repairs to her roof. They charged her hundreds of pounds for work they claimed they'd carried out, then stole hundreds more she was saving for Christmas from her bedroom.
It makes you wonder what kind of people they are. I'm trying very hard to come to terms with it. I won't open the door again in a hurry.
It's really knocked her confidence, it's made her very anxious, uptight, she's not sleeping, up in the middle of the night pacing about on the floors. You know, to think that there's been people in her house that have abused her own space, if you like, when she's trusted them to do the job that they said they were doing.
Anne is the 4th elderly person to be targeted by bogus callers in Tayside in a matter of days.
We do see spates of this occurring from time to time. It may be because of the winter months, and if they go at people's door and people are worried that maybe their houses aren't wind and watertight, they maybe will be more likely to allow them in and for their roof space to be checked. It is prevalent. We have had instances in other areas very similar in this case, where they have produced wood with worms and said that there's obviously been infestation of the roof.
As police try to trace those who targeted Anne, she's desperate to ensure others don't find themselves in the same situation she did.
Just don't let anybody into your house unless you know who they are. This is it. That was my big mistake. So, well, try and put it down to the price of experience. Costly though it was.
Louise Cowie, STV News, Dundee.
Well, opportunistic crimes such as bogus callers can go up at this time of year as emergency services gear up for their busiest period. Joining me is Assistant Chief Constable Mark Williams of Police Scotland. Thank you for joining me. Well, what should people, especially the elderly, be aware of at this time of year?
I think it's really important at this time of year that the elderly and other vulnerable members of the community do all they can to protect themselves. So if somebody comes to your door and you're not expecting them, don't let them in. Make sure if they are coming to your door, they do have identification. And if you're in any doubt whatsoever, ask them to come back at another time when perhaps you can have a family member or a friend there with you. Genuine callers won't mind doing that. And of course, at this time of year, I think it's incumbent on all of us to also look out for our neighbours and for the elderly people that live next door to us and in our communities. Often just a cup of tea and popping your head round the door goes a long way to reassuring them, to providing them with support, and can actually help give them some confidence. So if you have an elderly member living near you, if you've got an elderly member of your family or a friend, give them a call, pop in, have a cup of tea with them and look out for them. It's really important at this time of year that we all do that.
I mean, it's peak season for emergency services right now. How busy does it actually get?
It gets very busy at this time of year. It's probably the busiest time of the year for all of the emergency services, and the police in particular. On the 23rd of December last year, the Friday before Christmas, we took over 9,000 calls to the police service across Scotland. There was over 12,000 emergency calls in total to the emergency services. So it's incredibly busy, and it does put a big demand on our service.
What kind of things are happening? Do you know, why is it this time of year is so peak?
Well, rightly so. People are out enjoying themselves and enjoying the festivities, Christmas and New Year. And often, unfortunately, people do overindulge, they overconsume alcohol. And we find that a lot of calls at this time of the year are as a result of people having drunk too much and putting themselves in positions that they wouldn't otherwise put themselves in. They become victims of crime, or worse, they get involved in it themselves. So sadly, at this time of the year, people do overindulge. And my appeal to them would be to know your limits, drink responsibly, have a great time, but do it safely.
Is there any concern at all that the people that do need help simply won't get it because of how busy it is?
Sadly, when we're dealing with people who've had lots to drink, for example, they do take a lot of time. Often they're not cooperative. Often they don't or aren't able to tell us what's happened to them. And as a result, the services get bogged down in dealing with people who've had far too much to drink and aren't capable of looking after themselves. That can delay us getting to those that need us most, the most vulnerable people in society, and those that are at greatest risk. So again, I would appeal for people to think about that. Think about the impact that your behaviour and your judgments have on people who genuinely need the help of the emergency services. So have a great time, enjoy yourselves, but know your limits and drink responsibly.
Thank you for joining me, Mark. Good luck this Christmas. Volunteers are wanted to help charities provide an emergency bed for a young homeless person facing the prospect of sleeping rough. Night Stop, which runs in Edinburgh, is being extended to Glasgow in the new year. The stopgap measure is just one of a number of tailored support services being put in place to help vulnerable young people and women cope in the homeless system. Here's Sharon Frew with the second of her special features on the problem of homelessness.
The aim is to stop rough sleeping before it has begun.
See, it's sleeping, freezing cold, and I close. Lips are blue, you can't move, you're that cold, and you really just want to die.
This 25-year-old first slept rough when she was 15. The Simon community say its street team dealt with 54 young people on Glasgow's streets last year. Now it wants to set up a network of emergency beds for 16 to 25-year-olds in the homes of volunteers throughout the city.
There's a recognition that some young people at that early stage in their lives may have to leave a family home or a network of friends or whatever and try and make decisions about what they want to do with their life. If you're giving someone the chance to come into a safe space and have a listening ear, they may then have alternative options to get support.
The Night Stop service already exists in Edinburgh, where the Rock Trust has recruited 10 volunteer households. This is what awaits a young person who asks for help: a hot meal and a private room where they can stay for up to 3 nights while staff look for a long-term solution.
In Edinburgh, well, even over the last 2 months, we've had about 27 Night Stop nights. And essentially that's meant that for 27 nights, young people have not slept out on the street, have not hit the hostels. And for us and our hosts, that has been really successful.
The feedback's been very good. Some have said that it felt like home, felt like a home. Some have said that it's a safe haven for them.
A safe haven is how many of the women here describe this specialist service. In addition to extending its support for young people in Glasgow, the Simon community is working with its partners to try and tailor help available for vulnerable females who struggle in more traditional hostels and temporary accommodation.
I slept in car parks. It was scary. You get in it at night and you don't know, it's in a town and anything could happen to you.
I was ready to take my own life, to be honest with you, because I had enough everything. It was just too hard to deal with. I just packed my bags and left. When I walked in, it was just, I felt the relief.
One night I slept in a clothes because I had nowhere to go. Because you don't want to keep on getting into, you don't want to keep on bothering people and saying, can I stay the night, can I stay the night? This place has definitely saved me.
Staff say they've found that men access services quicker than women.
I would never ask for help. I thought if I asked me, I failed. I didn't want. embarrassed to say, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. But you need to. You get maybe shoved the pillar to post for a while, but it is there.
It really has. It's really got me, like, it's given me a kick up the bum and told me what to do. It's not what to do, it's what I need. It's like my help and all that with my alcohol issues, and it's given me hope now.
I've got a lot more confidence in myself, and that's thanks to the staff in here. You know, I want my kids to look up to me and go, oh, do you know what, Mummy, you've done me proud.
Relationship breakdowns are a major cause of homelessness. Both of these services aim to restore a sense of family and belonging. Sharon Frew, STV News.
And that's it for the moment. Don't forget you can contact us by social media and keep up to date on the STV News app. But for now, bye-bye.